Yuval, welcome back to the channel. My name is David. Today we're vlogging because I haven't had a chance to actually make a proper video in about 2 weeks, so I figured why not do a vlog? Because tomorrow I'm going to be going to NAMM show, and I'll be there on Friday as well, because the musicians I work with are going to be performing, and I figured bring you guys along for the ride, show you what it's like to attend a convention like NAMM. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with NAMM, it's basically, imagine like E3, but for musicians. So instead of video games, it's instruments, musicians, microphones, software, etc. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So let me show you what I'm taking for NAMM tomorrow. Okay, so for the first camera, I'm using the Nikon Z8 with the Tamron 28-75 G2. Great all-around general purpose combo. Love using this camera for hybrid work. It does photo and video very well. The next lens I'm going to be taking is the 70-180 Nikon. This is a good alternative to the more expensive 70-200 2.8S. It's also very light, and I think it's like a third of the price. And yeah, you lose 20 millimeters, but I could crop in camera on the Z8 to make it a much longer focal length if I need it. This is gonna be great depending on the stage that the bands are playing on. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna be assessing that tomorrow, but this is good for the long shots. And then obviously the last lens and camera I'm using is the Nikon ZF with the 17-28, which is what is filming me right now. So that is my bag for NAMM. Let's go to bed because I'm really tired, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. So bye. Whoop. The calm before the storm. Everyone's finally getting here to line up to go into the exhibit hall, which is right behind me. It opens at 10 o'clock, and it is currently 9:35, so we got about 30 minutes to kill. Very excited to be here again. I love working with Andy Vargas and Gabrielito and La Verdad and just all the musicians I work with. I'm very lucky to be able to say I work with them on the regular. And it's always fun to come to these conventions. It's almost like a huge family field trip, I guess is the best way to put it. And there's just gonna be a lot of cool shit that I'm gonna show you guys because like I mentioned in my intro, this is basically like E3, but if you're a musician. And it's refreshing to see conventions like this because conventions like E3 no longer happen. And this is probably the closest thing to it, but it's all about music and software and not video games. So anyways, let's have some fun. And the floodgates have opened. As you can see, NAMM is essentially like E3, but for musicians. It's the best analogy because I've been to E3 and you know, have been able to explore and stuff like that, and it's just massive. The Anaheim Convention Center is really giant, and I actually got lost for a bit before I got to Andy's booth over at Bispeco. And he had just a very low-key, intimate performance with the audience. They usually play around 3 to 4 songs, so about 20 minutes in total. And it's always fun to see these kind of smaller, intimate sets. Just people really resonate with a lot of his music, obviously because he's the singer for Santana, and he has been responsible for a lot of the classics over the years. But it's always a good time with this band. They're phenomenally talented, and again, it's just a small, intimate performance. Good morning. It's day 2. I brought my own coffee this time and my snacks because I spent $30 on food. So learn from your mistakes. I also brought a tripod because La Verdad's playing, and I checked out the stage yesterday where they're going to be at. So I'll be able to set up a tripod and then with my other camera, take pictures while the other one's recording video. So let's go get checked in and meet up with everybody. I love going through bag check with my cameras because the security and I always joke oh, you got a permit for that piece? And I was like, oh, here's my piece. Oh, look at that silencer. You know, I was just joking. um, yeah, it's always fun to mess around with the security staff because they have a good sense of humor. But yesterday was fun. It was good to see Andy and the rest of the band. I haven't seen them, I think, since late last year, just because they don't come out to LA too often. And then obviously Andy sings for Santana, so he's usually on tour. Stuff like that. So it felt like a family reunion of sorts, just with a bunch of musicians. So it's always fun to come to these conventions. But now I have to wait till they open so I can go get set up with La Verdad. So that's going to be fun. All right, the band's finally here and they're going to get set up. While they're getting set up, I like kind of just running around taking pictures of them, getting dialed in. It's always fun to see the mental shift from them, going from an average person to a musician. There's just this mental shift, and it's very fascinating to me to be able to capture that and just how hyper focused they are on what they're doing and everything. And then they do the sound check and all that stuff, and then the performance gets started. As you can see here, I did go to check on my ZF on the tripod periodically just because I was recording the entire set. It was about 40 minutes, and I didn't want people to knock over my camera because that's an expensive setup that was gonna bite the dust if somebody bumped the tripod, because people were starting to get crowded and dancing, and it's salsa, you have to have a good time and dance. But for the majority of the show, I shot everything on the Z8 with the 70 to 180. I was getting phenomenal results with this lens and camera. When I needed to crop in camera, I was able to do so to get a longer focal length. And occasionally I did shoot a couple shots on my 17 to 28, but mostly stuck with the close ups just because I like capturing the little details of the musicians as the way they perform and move and everything. And Carl Parasso actually jumped on stage for the last song. And for those of you who don't know, he is Carlos Santana's percussionist. He's just a legend in his own right. And Tiki, Gabriel's drummer, was very excited to share the stage with him because, a lot of these musicians know each other or have heard of each other, and or even like grew up listening and admiring a lot of these legendary musicians. And so seeing all this kind of come full circle for a lot of them at NAMM show is really fun, and it's such a cool experience to be able to capture and photograph. As you can see, it got very, very crowded very fast, and I was just running around like a maniac, just taking some pictures. Ran into a couple friends of mine too that are also music photographers, so that was fun. It's always good to just be amongst your tribe and people that share very similar passions to you, whether it be music or photography, and you know just to have a good time. That is one reason I enjoy going to NAM shows, just to have a great time with my friends. And yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found it enjoyable and entertaining, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hasta luego.